cranial nerves are numbered on them. And so obviously we probably wouldn't use that one on the test because they're numbered. We'd use a picture, or we'd use one that doesn't have. Some of the major nerves you can see real well. The optic nerves, you can see, and I'll show you on a cow eye what that corresponds to. The nerves from the eye come together at the optic chiasma, the optic cross, where these things come together and then bridge and go to each side of the eye. The olfactory lobes or olfactory nerves, you can see those real well. Remember the crista galli and those little olfactory foramina, the little holes that they're just sitting right down in that cribriform plate, you remember, and the chemicals are coming up out of the air or whatever, out of the soup or the food, whatever we're hungry for right now. Let's just go to Ortega's and eat that lunch, all-you-can-eat thing. I'm hungry myself. Those chemicals come up and stimulate those lobes, and you can smell as shortest nerve connection in the body. Even though the eye has all that hardware going to it, the sense of smell is actually pretty strong because it's right there. Those deer right now, it's just all about smell. You can shoot at them and they'll look at you and they go right back sniffing the ground trying to figure out where the doe went. I've had that happen before. I know what to do now. I was shooting too high. Those hornady slugs shoot right on. I was shooting above them like you did with old slugs, trying to lob them. 150 yards out, you just put it right on them. Well, anyway, you can see those nerves. We would not have you identify these other nerves on here. You have a figure that has them numbered. They are numbered by Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12, and in each of those is a particular nerve. The olfactory is number 1. Optic is number 2. Oculomotor is number 3. We'll go over some of this in lecture in a day or two. Cerebrum, big part of the brain, 3-pound universe. One essay I read one time described it as. Got a lot of ups and downs, some gyri and some sulci, some that are worth pointing out. Right on the side right here, I see a pretty pronounced one. That's the central sulcus. And so in front of it, I have the precentral gyrus. Behind it, I have the postcentral gyrus. So those are good landmark references when they're trying to figure out brain surgeries and things like that. You also have fissure, of course, right down the middle. Got a large fissure on the side, lateral one, on the side as well. The lobes are corresponded pretty much to the bone that they're behind. So frontal lobe up here, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe. Now, that's kind of confusing because it's like, okay, I get this, but wait a minute, where's the occipital start? Yes. It's kind of a general region back here. And we know certain things go to that. 100 years ago when the genetics work was coming out, well, there were people going all over the world, anthropologists. Hitler sent his anthropologists all over the world, and they were studying cranial capacity and size of the brain. The video that I want to show you coming up, it'll open, and it's going to go real quick at first because he's just trying to tell you how hokey some of the science was back in the day. But he'll have a porcelain bust there, and it's got the head with the skull removed, and it's all labeled. And where all these things, correspond to. And we know some of that's true. You get thumped on the back of the head pretty bad, you may lose your vision because the occipital lobe is responsible for vision. You get a tremendous face injury, head-on injury, like in an automobile accident or in a football helmet against another football helmet. You get a frontal lobe injury, and that can cause some terrible problems there. Sometimes people that have the frontal injuries, they're not the same person later that they were. They used to do the frontal lobotomies. They would either take a needle and go through the eye or somehow drill a hole and go in, and they would destroy part of the brain. And, well, yeah, that cured the habit or the behavior, but okay, now they're just smiling.
Wasn't there sometimes an adverse effect when they were doing it on violent prisoners? They got more violent?
It could if you and stimulated something else. And so it was just caveman surgery back in the day. So lots of neat things there. We know where language and all that is. And again, Hannibal Lecter comes to mind. I'm sorry for saying that on the table. There's like an incentive. Yes, the prefrontal lobe, Paul, is the seat of good manners. You won't miss that. So it works similar humor. But at the very beginning of the video, it'll show you one of the Fowler brothers' busts, and it'll have all these labels. Well, they believed in what was called phrenology. The old Bugs Bunny cartoons played with this. Remember when he's whacking the king over the head and he's getting the knots sticking up on his head, and that's a spoof playing off of that. You count the lumps on your head, and anyway, it's crazy. Cranial capacity was once studied. How big your brain is, well, therefore you can put more in it, right? All the alien stuff showed these big orbs on top of these aliens. Why? Well, they're massively intelligent creatures if they could get here. We fictitiously came that up. There was I cannot remember the guy's name. I went blank on it a while ago, and I'm blank right now. But back during the first half of the 20th century, first fourth of the 20th century, there was one guy that bought into this notion, and he had a huge head. And so when he died, he donated his brain to be studied because he knew down the road they would come up with ways to study his brain, and it would unlock, doors. Well, he died, and so they put his brain in a jar, and it sat in the office of Dr. Lauren Isley. And then in time, of course, Dr. Lauren Isley died, and the question was, okay, what are we going to do with that? They put it in a coffin with Dr. Isley. So they buried the other guy's brain because, the guy was pretty vain about it. But Hitler did send his lackeys out all over, the anthropologists out all over the world, and they studied all kinds of tribes. They did the plasters of studying cranial capacity and, trying to make some of those crazy cases for superior races and all that. So a lot of misinformation went with that. To the bottom and back of the brain is the cerebellum. That's not who you are. That's balance, coordination, and stuff like that. If I pull this apart, inside I can see the corpus callosum. I can see the fornix. One thing's on your list. Also right in the middle, and a lot of these, people in studying them, they just inadvertently have marked them with an ink pen. But I can see the hypothalamus. And right in the middle of it, you notice there's like a little thick spot. That's the intermediate mass of the hypothalamus. So you would have it. Inside the cerebellum itself, it kind of looks like if you've seen an arborvitae tree. It's an evergreen tree, kind of like a cedar tree, but the leaves are flat. And that's exactly what that leaf looks like. This is called the arborvitae, the tree of life. So you can actually see it very well in there. Other parts of the brain you can see, on this one you can see the pituitary. You can see the pineal gland or pineal body. You can also see the pons. Pons means bridge. It connects one side of the brain to the other side. You can also see the medulla oblongata. It's kind of swelling down here. It's hard to say 3 times. The medulla oblongata and the alligator and his toothbrush. The medulla oblongata is responsible for a lot of autonomic things, respiration, heartbeat, and stuff like that. Something happens there, you have a low injury, then that's pretty serious. High injury, it may be very serious, but it may not be terminal. Come on in, whoever. It may not necessarily be terminal.